When Payday 3 was released, it came out with an incredibly rocky start, with servers being totally overloaded and unable to handle the amount of players trying to get into the game. That, paired with the online-only requirement, made it so that virtually nobody could play the game. People were frequently making comments on my stuff saying that Payday 3 was a great game, but nobody could play it. Now, a month after release, you can easily find servers for Payday 3. Not because the servers got fixed, actually the only thing that changed was that less people are playing the game now. But the end result is you have an easy time finding a server. So logically speaking, shouldn't there be quite a number of people playing Payday 3? Actually, if anything, the player count for Payday 3 keeps dropping and dropping. Despite being able to play the game, it seems like more people are turning to other games, and more specifically, we can even take a look at Payday 2 and see that the numbers are still going strong. In fact, just comparing the two, Payday 2 has more active players than Payday 3. And this isn't even just by a little, it's by thousands of players. And it's not just the fluke of one day, this is consistent, and consistent daily. Now, one thing you have to understand is that Payday 3 is now multi-platform. It has players on Xbox, PlayStation, Epic Game Store, and Steam. However, I don't know of reliable ways to figure out the player count on the other platforms, so I can only really isolate my comparison to Steam. However, for the purpose of this video, the actual number of players is irrelevant. What is important is the trend. Payday 3, despite being technically playable now, is still hemorrhaging players, even to its own predecessor, Payday 2. Now, most people have surmised that it's simply because Payday 2 has had 10 years of content under its belt, and while I do agree, I actually do think there's much more to it than that. See, the thing is, I think it's not only important to figure out the cause, but also the why. Why is it happening? Because if we can start to figure out the why, maybe we can start looking at finding better solutions to the problem. I've heard some of the proposed ideas that people have for this game, and let's just say I wanted to offer my own. So if you're willing to hear me out, allow me to put on my tinfoil hat and break down my theories on all this. So of course, let's just get the easy one out of the way. Yes, Payday 2 has 10 years of content that add more variety and more replayability to the game. But surely, since there are claims about how good Payday 3 is, then there'd be intrinsic value to keep on playing the newer game, right? Maybe not so. First and foremost, we all know that the challenge system of Payday 3 is horrifically grindy and stifling. It doesn't allow you to play the game the way you want, and you're forced to complete checklists of challenges in order to do basic things, such as unlocking new weapons and getting skill points for a build. Now, the common argument I see defending this system is that it's supposed to promote rounding out the game by forcing players to use a variety of weapons, play different maps, and show off their knowledge because they know how to utilize all different parts of the game. However, as we've seen, that's not so at all. In fact, this system directly promotes the opposite. Most people ignore playing the heist. They just grind weapon challenges and restart games over and over to drop equipment bags and hide in bathrooms. Why is that? Because I think this isn't a system that rewards you, it's a system that punishes you. Let's take a look at Payday 2 for a second. Payday 2, after its long years of experience, has had the time to craft a pretty decent system of leveling. There's a mechanic in place to give you more EXP for playing a heist that you haven't done in a while. You get a stealth bonus for completing a heist fully stealth. In each heist, the more loot you obtain, the more EXP you also gain. You have different game modes that break up the monotony: crime spree, holdout. In some cases, there are even incentives to do these, such as their own cosmetic rewards. For Infamy, you're rewarded each time you level up past 100 because the next Infamy gives you an EXP boost, and this continues on no matter how many times you do it. See, the way EXP is handled in Payday 2 is that it rewards you. You are rewarded for doing different things. You are rewarded for leveling up more and more. And yet you're never fully punished for not doing it. You know, I don't have to Infamy past 5, or 1 these days. I don't have to play different missions. I can keep on cooking meth just because I like it. Sure, I'll get a little bit less EXP, but I can still do it. Payday 3 has no such concessions. If you get no challenges done, you get nothing. You are not incentivized to get more loot, you're not incentivized to do stealth, you are not incentivized to do anything besides grinding challenges. Payday 3's system isn't rewarding, it's punishing. The devs forgot that for the carrot and stick method to work, you gotta occasionally give the carrot. Right now, Payday 3 is all stick. Now, I don't know if this is something that the devs proposed themselves or people are just commenting the idea on my videos, but simply adding more challenges to do is not what I think is going to fix the problem. That's just adding more stick. Okay, well that doesn't actually make sense, but you understand what I mean, right? The thing is, I've had a few close friends who've seen gameplay of Payday 3 and told me, you know what, it doesn't look that bad. You know, even if it's kind of lacking content like heists and weapons, it still looks worth a try, especially at a $40 price tag. But as soon as they see how progression works, everyone gets turned off. The problem with implementing a system like this is that it's clear that the devs wanted to avoid a situation like Payday 2, where at release, the best way to farm EXP and money was to speedrun Ukrainian job on overkill with C4s, blow up the safe, get in and out. It took only like a minute. So they wanted a system in Payday 3 that forced players to have variety. Arguably, this system did succeed in punishing those that farm singular missions over and over. But the thing is, speedrunners and farmers will always, I mean always, just find what's most optimal and do it. With this system now, sure, they're not farming one mission over and over, but they're sitting in bathrooms and finishing up all their challenges that way. Is that better? Arguable, but that's not the issue. The issue is that by designing this new challenge system to punish EXP farming, you've also punished every player of the game. And congratulations, now you've successfully alienated your casual player base. They don't want to be forced to play missions they don't want to. They don't want to use awful starter weapons that they don't like. They don't want to do stealth or loud or whatever the challenges may dictate. You have to give players the freedom to choose, or instead, they'll just choose to play another game. The funniest thing is, the devs ended up with a pretty decent way of fixing the issue in Payday 2. They gave Ukrainian job Titan safes on the highest difficulties, so you have to play the mission as quote-unquote intended. They scaled loot properly, so short and quick missions with less loot to get give less EXP compared to long and complicated ones. The template was sitting there, and they just threw it out. Payday 3's progression system just gives the players no control over how they want to play. And this segues nicely into my next topic. One of the big things I feel like Payday 3 lacks is player control. Yeah, that sounds a bit goofy when I say it out loud, but I mean it. The issue is created by the lack of quality of life and the lack of customization. I'm not talking about like cosmetic customization, because certainly there's ways to customize your guns with skins, paints, charms, stickers. You know, the kids love that kind of stuff, and it's in Call of Duty too. You also have the mask customization and suit skins. Sure, they're bare bones, but you know, this is the one thing I give a pass for when I talk about selling future DLC. I'm not really happy with the fact that Payday 3 is probably going to force you to buy all the new DLC as like a bundle, so you have heists, weapons, and stupid skins. That's not what I want to talk about though. What I'm talking about is more subtle. In Payday 2, players have more control over various aspects of the game. You can customize your AI, from the weapons they use to the look they have with masks and skins. You can choose to use AI or not to use them. You can make your lobbies with a loud or stealth tag. And subsequently, you can also look for games that are loud or stealth oriented. Lobby customization, it actually mattered. You know, you could change much more in the pregame lobby. You could have true private lobbies. In Payday 3, both the friends only and invite only options are somehow broken. I've had 3 or 4 instances now where someone joined my private game when I'm trying to record content for a video. You can customize your music and choose only the ones you really like. Of course, there's also some of the more gameplay-oriented stuff. Skills feel much more customizable in Payday 2, and it also felt like they had a lot more impact. In Payday 3, they're just too streamlined, and basically everyone feels like they're using mostly the same stuff. Weapons also felt like they had a lot more unique customization, especially regarding the concealment mechanic that could drastically change how a weapon feels. In Payday 3, nothing much changes how a weapon feels besides, slight recoil differences or maybe a little bit of a faster reload. I've discussed the problem with quality of life and the lacking customization in other videos, but the biggest problem with these is that it results in giving the player no control. It feels like you can't play the way you want, that your choices don't really matter and you aren't really free to do, what you want. That's the big feeling I get after Payday 3, and I've played over 100 hours now. I just don't have a lot of influence over what I do. It's not a great feeling. Just like the challenges, an important part is letting players feel like they're in control, that they have the freedom to do what they want. Hell, even the bloom mechanic from the gunplay is pretty indicative of this. In Payday 3, there's just none of that. You're just a cog in the machine, a brick in the wall. The game is taking you for a ride, and instead of an exciting roller coaster, you're just on that all ages version, with a little airplane that goes up and down about 5 feet and spins in a really slow circle.
Oh, but GeneralMcBadass, you just have to wait. The game isn't fully complete yet. It's a live service and it'll be much better later on.
And here we are, ultimately leading back to the original argument. Payday 3 just doesn't have the updates or the content right now. But is that really all there is to it? Let's take a step back. Yes, Payday 2 had 10 years to build up content, and yes, Payday 3 also plans to be a live service game which sells consistent paid DLC and build up the game for years to come. Payday 3 proudly announced a roadmap of 1 year of planned DLC, selling it for a pretty high price, and the base game comes without quality of life and lacks variety in heists and weapons, and in general has little replayability outside of incredibly grindy challenges. So, is anyone really surprised that nobody wants to play the game right now? First off, just because it's a live service game does not mean it gets excused for being an incomplete game at launch. And no, just because every other game is like that and it's industry standard now, does not all of a sudden make it okay either. Oh, but Payday 2 was very similar at launch, you're being unfair to Payday 3. Okay, let's talk about Payday 2. Payday 2 came out with a fairly limited amount of content at its own launch, and it also sold paid DLC on the regular, even monthly, for the first few years. What makes this situation different? Well, Payday 2 actually felt like it had heart. Sure, there were lots of small, rather average heists. They rehashed bank heists a couple times and, said that was different heists. But it also had some unique, grand ones. Rats, the first time you get to cook meth. You do a deal with gangsters. You even steal money out of an exploding bus. Framing frame. The first time you get the option of stealing that extra secret loot in a hidden vault. And Day 3 honestly just feels like a better designed Touch the Sky, or Touch the Sky, whatever it's fucking called, which is also supposed to be the penthouse on a skyscraper heist. Big Oil, not everyone's favorite, but it did play with new ideas like an assassination type mission and a unique puzzle for Day 2. Yeah, there weren't a lot of weapons, but the game still felt like it was supposed to be complete. Then we talk about DLC, and let's just limit it to the first year to start, It felt like every DLC was trying to one-up the last one. Each bit of content felt like the devs were giving it their all. Weapons often came with new mechanics or new features. Heists got bigger and better with stuff like Shadow Raid, Big Bank, Hoxton Breakout, and that's just like the first year or so. Of course, as with anything else, even Payday 2 fell to shitty live service practices over time. After years of adding content, they just started to reskin weapons and sell them as new DLC packs. And then they started to put in some really low effort heists where it feels like there's just random assets on a map and you have arbitrary objectives forcing you to run from point A to point B. They also doubled down on weapon skins and suit skins that were quite ugly. I spoke out against those DLCs, but back then Payday 2 was still everyone's love child, so the response I usually got back was, "You're too whiny," and "I buy DLC to support the devs." And Payday 3, unfortunately, feels like it took advantage of this. If people are willing to buy the DLC when it's uninspired, then why put in the effort? Payday 3's base game heist, they just feel so boring. You hunt for QR codes, you stand in circles to hack objectives, and that's almost like half the heists. There's a purposefully limited amount of weapons, and the skills also just don't feel unique. And then there happens to be no quality of life, and there's still bad optimization. So it's not just that Payday 3 is lacking content, it's that the content isn't very good. It doesn't feel like there was a lot of love put into it outside of a few points here and there. As a whole, it feels like Payday 3 has no ambition. At least Payday 2, they tried to experiment with some things. And I don't know, maybe that's purposeful, If you throw in all the goodies in the base game, you have to come up with new and interesting stuff for DLC. Like I said, with Payday 2, it eventually reached that point of having uninspired DLC, but it took a while to get there before that. And by that time, it also had a solid foundation going for it. It had plenty of good content that you can get, and it frequently went on sale. Payday 3 came out of the starting gate with, mediocrity. What sucks is that this game is just going to end up like almost every other live service game that gets released these days. A few examples that were pointed out to me: Halo Infinite, Warhammer Darktide, Destiny 2. All of these also came out in mediocre states, and, with time, will eventually become a better game. In fact, I hear that these days, Darktide and Halo Infinite are actually doing pretty well, and people are pretty pleased with where the game is. Now, what worries me about Payday 3 is I can't actually think of something that sets it apart from other games. Okay, let's just take the ones I just mentioned. Halo has the bones for a solid multiplayer. Darktide, great aesthetic, some exciting core gameplay, and fucking amazing music. Destiny 2, as much as I hate that game, it still has some of the best FPS gunplay I've ever come across in any game, and it has fun stuff like raiding. What does Payday 3 have? I don't know. The best I could describe it to other people is that it's Call of Duty Light. Let's go call in our kill streak overkill weapon, guys. So Payday 3 doesn't have the foundation of good content like Payday 2 does, nor does it have a unique identity. And I think that's going to hurt it in the long run. To me, simply adding more content like more heists and more weapons, that's not going to help fix the bigger underlying issue. What does Payday 3 want to be? I'm not sure, but I hope we find out soon. Because not only do I think it needs some quality content, but it needs to figure out its identity. Because right now, this game is giving me lots of parallels to Back 4 Blood. Rather than Payday 3 being a gem that needed polishing, it feels more like one of those rocks you find by the river, and the water has smoothed and rounded out over time. So yeah, it's kind of a nice rock, but it has no defining features, and there's hundreds just like it. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. The thing is, I think it's easy just to look at Payday 2 having more players than Payday 3, but then coming to perhaps the wrong conclusion about it. It's not just about trying to add more challenges. It's not just about trying to get more updates, more content. I think there are bigger reasons at play that result in players choosing Payday 2 over the shiny, brand new Payday 3. And let me just get this out of the way for you guys. How dare I be so whiny, pointing out the flaws of Payday 3? How dare I be entitled for expecting infinite content out of a $40 game? How dare I be impatient for expecting a live service game to come out complete, finished, and in a good state? Yes, these are all real comments I get. It's funny. I also got these a lot for Payday 2. Look, you can call me what you want, but what doesn't lie are the numbers. People are leaving the game in droves, and there needs to be a big, drastic change if the game wants to stay alive, and soon. We can't just wait a year like some of the other games. I've tried to explain the same things that happened before, and we're just repeating that same cycle, it seems. I just don't know how much more I can do it. I think one of the things I fear right now is that the devs will see what's happening, or the publishers will see what's happening, and instead of doubling down their efforts into Payday 3, they're gonna try and continue dual supporting by doing Payday 2 content as well as Payday 3, which is only going to split the community even more, and oh man, there's so many bad things that could happen. I am genuinely sorry that I'm not optimistic about this, but the thing is, I haven't had the most faith in the people holding onto the reins for Payday in a long time. I mean, just every other game. Raid World War II, The Walking Dead, that mobile version of Payday 2 that they just shut down recently. Well, who knows what'll happen in the future. For me, I don't even know. I guess I'll try to keep making videos, but it's just not fun right now. Anyway, guys, thanks for putting up with my rambling. So, I'll see you guys later.